Okay, first thing is first. We are working on our newly installed instance of WordPress, keeping in mind that this is totally independent of your portfolio or any other WordPress for that matter. This is the setup or the main screen. As your users come to it currently, this is what they would see. Taking a look here, the default theme I believe that's loading is 2014. Along the left-hand side down the bottom is this block called Meta, and it's got login and it's got a few other things. These are all pieces over here that are being driven by widgets. And later on, you're going to be removing these widgets as you would like. And I personally often remove this Meta widget because I don't like the fact that 3 out of the 4 things are things that I don't want people to fuss with. So I, generally speaking, don't have the luxury of a login button right here. So while you do currently, and I could certainly click on that, I do want to make sure you know that the way to log in correctly is, or another way at least, is to go behind your web URL and type in wp-admin. And if you accepted the defaults on the install, your username is going to be your email address, and you're going to type in that long password. And once we're in, we're going to go ahead and start on a couple of different things. Now, I have written out shorthand versions of this tutorial in terms of the things you need to check, not check. You might consider doing 2 things. You might consider going to our course and bringing up that Word document or that set of directions ahead of time and kind of have it running in the background. Note that you can pause these videos at any point, go look at the directions, go to your own web site, make those changes, save them, come back, continue the video, continue reading directions. So that is the idea behind the flow of this instructional mode. Always want to pause the video and go take a look and do it yourself. There's a couple of things that we need to take care of straight away, and these are pretty darn important, so let's get to them. The first thing I want you to do is over here on the left-hand side on your menu, go to Settings. And the first thing is under the General tab, I want you to rename this, and the renaming is your choice. It can either be Instructional Design or it could be EDTC 621. I'm going to leave mine as Instructional Design. Your tagline can be something profound or prophetic or just very cute. It could be your name. I would suggest, though, you go ahead and get rid of the tagline default, which is another WordPress site. So for me, I'm going to put in MSCT Ramapo. Now, the web address URL is something that very advanced users can get into changing it, but for our purposes, we don't want to do that. We do want to change our email address. And I want to make sure from a security standpoint that this is not checked. I do not want anybody coming along and registering. And that's also going to kind of play into our other security pieces here. By not allowing people to register, we limit what they can do. I already have changed my time zone to New York, but note that normally it starts out with UTC codes. All you have to do is scroll up to the Americas in order to find New York. The date format, the time format, those are your choices, but I wouldn't change them. I would make a decision and stick with them. I'm going to go ahead and leave those as the default and click on Save. Now I'm going to go right on to the next page. So if you want to pause here and go do this yourself and come back, but I'm going to go ahead and jump right into the next page, which I consider very important in terms of discussion and security. So over on the left-hand side, click on Discussion. Now, these settings, I've done a couple things, so pay attention to what I'm checking it versus unchecking. There are a couple different things that, quite frankly, I never touch. The avatars, I don't like people commenting on the blogs. Most of my content is static, so it's not an interactive site in that regard, so I don't ever deal with avatars. I don't have to touch them or change them, but I want to get these out of the way because I don't want you wondering later on why I didn't address them. I don't deal with comments, as I said, so I don't deal with a comment blacklist or moderation. But the things I do here is this. First of all, attempt to notify any blogs linked to from the article. That's fine. You can leave that checked. Allow link notifications from other blogs, pingbacks, and trackbacks. I usually uncheck that. And where it says allow people to post comments on new articles, I always uncheck that. Next, I go down to where it says other comment settings and I check off that comment author must fill out name and email. Basically what I'm doing is I'm setting up a bunch of rules that conflict with each other. So in essence, I'm not allowing people to comment, but then I'm also saying that if they did comment, they'd have to fill this out. Basically, you can't do one or the other because of that here. So I'm essentially setting up a bunch of rules that are going to negate each other and hopefully keep out any kind of spam bots. Keeping in mind that there are websites or web servers out there that do nothing but scour the internet for open WordPresses. And their objective is to push out as much advertising content to your website as they possibly can in the hopes that somebody else coming along looking at it will see it and will obviously go off and buy their content or their product. You don't want to be in the business of having that happen to you where you have no control over who's posting what. So again, I strongly urge you to follow through with these. I'm also saying here users must be registered and logged in to comment, but remember back here under general I'd said nobody can register. These two pieces really don't matter an awful lot. Because I'm saying don't allow people to post comments on new articles, and then I'm saying that they must be registered to comment, but over in the general area I said nobody can automatically register. This portion where it says email me whenever anyone posts a comment and a comment is held for moderation, I do check those just because if in fact something gets through and something does start posting, I would want to know about it. And then before I leave here, I'm going to choose under before a comment appears, comment must be manually approved, which means that the comment doesn't go public until I come in and approve it. Again, the purpose here is creating a bunch of rules that are going to kind of negate each other. And then I also leave this last one checked as well. Comment author must have a previously approved comment. I'm going to pop down here and click on Save Changes. And before I continue with any other content in terms of understanding WordPress, I do want you to go do these two particular things. The settings, which is the general piece up here. I want you to change all of this information. In addition, I want you to go and change all the content in terms of discussion. And I will see you in a moment. Go do this and then come right back. And the last thing in this first chunk, which is probably going to make the most sense and meaning to you, is to change your password. As you know, when you installed WordPress, you ended up with a password that was fairly challenging. To do that, you're going to come over here to Users. You're going to find your particular user and you're going to click on Edit. You're going to come down. Note that I've already filled in my first name, last name. You should do that as well. This nickname, if you wanted to actually change your login screen name, this is where you would do that. But before you change any of that, I strongly recommend that you leave this profile intact and point it to your Ramapo email address, but then also set yourself up as another administrator with a different username and password. Let me show you how to do that. But before we leave this page, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and click into where it says new password, and you're going to type in the new password. Password has to be at least 7 characters long, and of course they recommend that you mix it up with lower, upper, and numbers and symbols. I've already changed my password, so I'm not going to demo that, but certainly you should do that so that you don't have that long, nasty password. Another thing you can do is go ahead and come back to users, and what you can do is click on Add New, and you can change your username to admin perhaps. So you're basically setting up 2 administrative types of users. That way, if, for example, you happen to lose one or you don't have access to your Ramapo email, you have another administrative level person in the site. It's also important to do that because if in fact you have to give up your credentials to somebody for help, that you have a secondary or a third even username password to give off to them so that you don't compromise your primary one. I'm going to go ahead and set up a password here, and now, is it okay to set up the same password? Sure. If you're going to be the only one in there, that's fine. But chances are, again, you're doing this so you would have a different combination. So you might want to set up a different password here. And in this case, I'm going to make that person an administrator, and I'm going to click on Add New User. And now I have 2 users in the system, both of which are administrators. Note that I didn't show this to you, but it is important when you submit an email, you can't submit the same email. So it's not like you can have 5 users with the same exact email address. So when you're setting up your new administrator, you must use a different email address. Again, I recommend that you leave the Ramapo one alone and that you set up one for your personal web email so that you can always get to it from there. And that's it for the moment. Go do that.